We've all been there, desperate to hold on to someone who's making us feel anything, just to prove our love is worth something. But beneath the surface lies a destructive pattern, born from a toxic mix of childhood fear and adult longing, that drives us to seek validation in the very people who are least likely to give it to us. You may have seen it in your own relationships, the way you compromise your boundaries, make concessions, just to be seen as desirable, only to be left feeling used and unfulfilled. In this video, we'll dig deep into the unspoken forces that manipulate our pursuit of love, and reveal the hidden truth behind why we keep coming back for more, even when it feels like our sense of self-worth is slowly disappearing. Attachment anxiety is a silent force that seeps into our relationships, often fueled by a deep-seated need for validation that stems from a perceived inadequacy within ourselves. We're drawn to individuals who have a profound sense of self, those who can provide us with an external validation that our internal sense of self-worth is sorely missing. The irony lies in our genuine desire for connection, but it's often hijacked by a desperation for validation, one that leaves us feeling vulnerable and insecure. This craving for validation can masquerade as attraction, but in reality, it's our ego's desperate attempt to fill the void within us, to prove to ourselves that we are deserving of love and acceptance. When we allow attachment anxiety to dictate our actions, we inadvertently hand over control to the very thing that's supposed to be giving us a sense of security, our partner. By obsessing over their approval, we create a cycle of self-deception, convincing ourselves that their validation defines our self-worth, rather than acknowledging that our self-worth is an intrinsic aspect of who we are. When we're driven by insecurity, our pursuit of validation often masquerades as love, but in reality, it's a desperate cry for reassurance that we're good enough. The irony of our attachment anxiety is that we seek validation from others in a desperate attempt to fill the void left by our own unworthiness. At its core, our attachment anxiety is not about the person, but about the unfulfilled need within us, and our inability to accept that our worth isn't defined by external validation. We're not attracted to the people who have everything together, we're drawn to those who are vulnerable, because their imperfections speak to our own and give us a glimmer of hope that we too might be loved, flaws and all. Behind the facade of insecurity lies a deeply rooted fear of abandonment, and it's this fear that drives us to manipulate others into providing the validation we crave. Our self-deception is a clever one. We convince ourselves that we're the insecure ones, that we're the ones who need fixing, when in reality, it's our partner's lack of emotional maturity that leaves us feeling inadequate and desperate for reassurance. When we crave validation above all else, it reveals a deep-seated insecurity that we're desperate to conceal with the masks of confidence and self-assurance. People with attachment anxiety often find themselves stuck in this exhausting cycle of pursuit, where they seek validation through love and attention, rather than cultivating self-love and self-worth. The truth is that the fear of abandonment is not about the fear of physical separation, but about the fear of being abandoned by one's own sense of identity and self-worth. By clinging to a partner for validation, we're ultimately seeking control over a sense of self that's perpetually on shaky ground, but this is a delusional attempt to fill the void within ourselves. We're drawn to people who are emotionally unavailable because they reflect our own sense of unlovability, and this is a painful truth that we're unwilling to confront. What we call attraction is often just a form of reciprocal validation, a sense of belonging to someone who can momentarily alleviate the pain of our own internal emptiness. When you're driven by a deep-seated fear of abandonment, your desire for validation and control becomes an insidious manipulation tactic, often masked as affection or concern. This toxic dynamic stems from a twisted attempt to compensate for feelings of insecurity and unworthiness, which can be rooted in childhood trauma or deep-seated attachment anxiety. In reality, your partner doesn't have the power to fulfill your unquenchable void or validate your existence, a notion you desperately cling to. Beneath your charming facade and loving gestures lies a desperate pursuit of self-assurance and acceptance, one that ultimately disrespects the boundaries and autonomy of the other person. The fear of being left behind becomes an unconscious motivator for your manipulative behavior, prompting you to constantly seek attention, reassurance, and proof of devotion, often bordering on obsession. This warped dynamic can lead to suffocating your partner with emotional demands, creating a sense of emotional claustrophobia and draining the very intimacy you claim to crave. In the pursuit of validation, you subtly yet relentlessly erode the other person's sense of self-worth, slowly but surely replacing their confidence with your crippling needs and fears. The tragic irony lies in the fact that this destructive pattern is, in fact, a self-protective measure aimed at avoiding the very pain you're terrified to acknowledge, the pain of being abandoned or unloved. The irony in our pursuit of love and connection is that we often unconsciously settle for a toxic dynamic, driven by the desperate need for validation that stems from our own insecurities. As we navigate the maze of attachment anxiety, it becomes clear that our intense emotions and obsessive behaviors are not genuinely driven by love, but rather a calculated attempt to ensure a sense of security and control in a seemingly uncertain world. In reality, our attachment to another person is rooted in a deep-seated need for external validation, rather than a genuine desire to truly connect with them on a profound level. When we're unable to accept ourselves, we inevitably try to find that acceptance in others, only to become trapped in a never-ending cycle of seeking validation and attention, and ultimately, losing ourselves in the process. The more we crave love and connection, the more we paradoxically push others away, as our underlying fears of rejection and abandonment dictate our actions, rather than our genuine feelings or intentions. At its core, attachment anxiety is not about love, but about the desperate need to fill the void within ourselves, and in doing so, we create an unhealthy dynamic that perpetuates our very own self-deception. As we wrap up this exploration of attachment anxiety and love, I want to leave you with a crucial takeaway. The pursuit of validation in relationships is often a symptom of deeper emotional wounds. I invite you to consider how this dynamic may be playing out in your own relationships and to share your observations in the comments below. If you found this conversation thought-provoking, be sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and stay tuned for more in-depth explorations of human psychology.